welcome to Overtime Hockey Talk. My name is Mark Paul, my co-host Justin Baker and I here for our 5-year anniversary show. Justin, happy 5 years together.
My gosh, we've been together that long.
Dude, that's crazy. I mean, I've known you a lot longer than that, and but 5 years. There aren't too many shows that make it 5 years, and I think this is episode number 267. So 200. Oh, you know, we're moving in on 300 episodes, and 5 years. This will be season number 5. So now that they, I know that the option to make your shows be in like season form, you know, like on podcasts, you can see people do like season 1, season 2, blah, blah, blah. And I never did it because in the very beginning I didn't, and was like, man, that's a lot of shows to go back and change. But I think now I can just say, all right, we're starting on season 5. So once we hit like training camp or something like that, we'll officially be in season number 5. Wait, is that season number 5? 2007?
No, season 6.
Season 6. So we've done 5 seasons. Yeah, so then this will be the 6th season. That's crazy. I mean, you think about, geez, what was happening when we first started? We were like, man, is anybody going to be able to to beat this Pittsburgh Penguins team who just won the Stanley Cup with no defenseman? And like, will the Washington Capitals ever win the cup? Like, that hadn't happened yet. That's crazy to think.
Pittsburgh still can't get out of the first round.
Yeah. Well, no, they didn't. They win. Oh no. Oh yeah, they won the cup in 2017, 16 and 17, and then that was what the Caps and then the Blues, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
And then 2 years of St. Louis, Tampa.
Yeah, and then we got Colorado. So we'll see. Coming up into our 6th season. That's crazy. Well, anyways, enough patting ourselves on the back for, being consistent, I suppose. But we've got a lot to talk about here. We decided that we're not going to do a top 10 show today. We're going to just jump into some different topics that are going on around the league. We talked a little bit about Nazem Kadri in our top 10 grinders, which you can go check out, subscribe to the show. But we wanted to jump into it a little bit more, especially now that details of the Sean Monahan trade to Montreal have come to light. And there are some, this might be the most complicated conditions on a pick that I've ever seen in the history of the National Hockey League. Find me one where there's more conditions, because I don't know that it exists. Shall we run through these, Justin?
Dude, be my guest.
Okay. Now, I guess first is to just say, all right, so the Calgary Flames sent Sean Monahan along with a first-round selection to Montreal, okay? And that first-round pick, in the event Calgary's own 2024 first-round choice is between 20 and 32, then Montreal shall have the option until 48 hours before the draft to exchange the conditional 2025 or 2026 first-round choice to become Calgary's own 2024 first choice. But if Florida's 2025 first-round choice transfers to Calgary, or if that happens, if it transfers to Calgary, in the event the conditions to trigger Montreal's option as noted in number 1 above does not occur, or Montreal declines to exercise the option, the following conditions shall prevail. If Calgary's own 2025 first and Florida's 2025 first are not in the top 10 selections of the 2025 draft, then Montreal shall receive the earlier of the two stated choices. But if Calgary's first-round choice or Florida's first-round selection are outside of the top 10, then Montreal will get Florida's 2025 first. And if we stopped right there, that would be good enough for me. I'm like, oh my gosh. All right, so we've got a lot of things. But it continues. In the event the conditions to trigger Montreal's option is noted in number 1 above does occur. Oh, wait, did I just skip something? No, I didn't.
You did.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, if Calgary does not receive Florida's first round pick.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
More scenarios.
And it just keeps, honestly, it just keeps going and going and going. Essentially, we get, what it all boils down to is we're trying to make sure that Florida and Calgary are both good.
And they both have first rounds.
If for some reason they're not, then Montreal's going to get a different pick, because there's a lot of potential picks that Montreal could get here. And it's madness, but I guess Calgary is doing their best to protect and to make sure that this pick doesn't end up being a top 10 pick. That would be the goal when all is said and done. And there's more. I mean, anyone can just go read, just type in Sean Monahan trade. You'll find the conditions. It's just, it's a little too much to keep going, but I just wanted to, bore you with the details for a moment to show you how desperate they were to not accidentally pull a Colorado pull an Ottawa giving Colorado a top 5 pick for, in that, what was that? That was the Duchesne deal, right?
Dude, what a mess.
So they went pretty far to assure that doesn't happen. It'll be funny if it still somehow happens, but after all that, they just end up with the latest possible pick, and that's when they're actually bad. That would be unusual. Well, with that said, so Monahan, he goes to Montreal. Obviously, Calgary acquires Nazem Kadri as a free agent. What do you think of the giant shakeup that we've seen in this division alone? Like just the Pacific Division, and what Johnny Gaudreau not just leaving the Flames, but leaving the division has caused a giant ripple effect through the Calgary Flames and other teams in this division.
Well, I mean, first I got to tip my cap to Brad Treliving. I mean, most people, right? You lose 200-point guys, and by the way, for those who don't know, this is the first time ever a team has lost 2 100-point players like this in this kind of scenario, right? So it's incredible. So I got to tip my cap to him for not just lying over and dying, because Calgary could have easily just said the minute Gaudreau was walking out the door and you knew Matthew Tkachuk was ready to leave, they could have said, you know what? Fuck it. We're going to hit the reset button. We're going to rebuild. We're going to go through all this, get rid of Darryl Sutter because he's not hanging around for that. Let's just keep acquiring picks here and rebuild over the next few years. But instead, they go out and somehow miraculously get Jonathan Huberdeau to, in a trade package, but manage to convince him to sign long-term, which, I mean, I'll be honest, when I first saw that trade come, for Mackenzie Weegar, Huberdeau, all this stuff come in, I thought, you know what? Both these guys are going to wait till free agency and walk at the deadline is what's going to happen. They're going to get dealt. That seems like the most likely scenario to me. I was 95% sure of it, but he manages to sign Huberdeau to an extension without playing a single game, and says, you know what? I'm not done on my birthday. I'm going to go ahead and sign Nazem Kadri to a 7x7 deal here. So he manages to still. I mean, if you look at it, I think TSN put up the stats basically about the players they lost, Sean Monahan, Gaudreau, Tkachuk, versus the players they acquired in Kadri, Weegar, Huberdeau, and it still managed to actually get 4 more points on their roster than what had left. So if you really think about it, not only is he saving cap money too, because I can tell you between Kadri and Huberdeau, at around, $17.5 million was going to be cheaper than, Gaudreau and Tkachuk, in my opinion. So they managed to maybe save $1 million or $2 and still managed to replace him with an equal number of points. To me, that's pretty impressive. And I gotta tip my cap, because look, Calgary could have easily laid over, but instead, you know what? I think they saw what Vegas was going through, that they don't have a starting goaltender. They're down to their 3rd and 4th string goalies, and they easily just said, you know what, hey, we've got an opportunity here. Edmonton struck. They got a good goaltender, so they're going to be a lot better next year, on paper anyways. And so, you know what, let's strike while the iron's hot. Vegas is down and out for the count. LA is getting better, and who knows if they're going to be more competitive next year because they add Fiala, and you think, okay, yeah, they should improve, and hopefully Quentin Byfield takes another step. So, again, this could have been an easy scenario where Brad Treliving says, we lost too much, and all these other teams around us are getting better, but instead they just say, you know what, hey, we're gonna strike while the iron's hot. We got a good team. We think we can win with what we have, and I don't blame them. I think, Kadri, to me, I like what he brings. I think he brings a good, amount of sandpaper and skill to this team to really fit in well with Daryl Sutter's coaching style, and it really should fit in quite well. Now the question is, do you move him to the wing? Do you keep him at that second line center spot? How do you handle that? But I think they probably discussed that before signing Kadri, so they have a good idea what they're going to start the season with, anyways. And so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly a scenario where Kadri plays top line minutes, and that's maybe he plays over Elias Lindholm. I don't think that you don't really care. I mean, you're looking at both those guys and you're going, well, you're going to play in the top six, and by the way, Michael Backlund's a pretty darn good center who's going to play third line minutes and probably kill penalties, and I mean, he's a great option to have at that third line spot, which I really think is where he is a better player when he's in that spot, when he's in the position where he's not in the top six. And I think with Monahan being kicked down the lineup, you found Backlund playing more minutes in an offensive role than he needed to be, and now I think he can play the role that he's just designed to play. I mean, he's a defensive center, and I think that he'll be better served that way. So I mean, Calgary in a lot of ways, I mean, yes, you lose two superstar wingers, you get one back, and you also get a pretty darn good center. And that's all. And for the Flames, where they were, I'll say that center was definitely their weakest position last season. Now they're improved. I mean, they added a top six centerman, and they also add a top four defenseman on top of a pretty good defensive core to begin with too. So we'll see, kind of how that plays itself out. I mean, the rest of the division is likely to improve. I think most like Vancouver, I think we're looking at them and going, they're not going to be as bad as they were last year. They were good down the stretch. Bruce Boudreau really breathed some life into that team. Bruce Boudreau, given a full season, do we see him missing the playoffs? I don't. I think he's probably they're going to at least be right there, contending for a playoff spot. Vegas, now without a goalie, I mean, not that I don't think they can go out and acquire something and make some moves here, which they likely will do, but it's probably going to take some time. So I think they may not be a super high up in the standings come trade deadline time. They might be sitting right on the bubble of a playoff spot and go out and acquire a goalie. They also had a lot of injuries last year. And do we think that all of a sudden a new year is just going to bring a totally fresh and healthy team all across the board?
Well, a full year of a healthy Jack Eichel, maybe you give him an opportunity to get some chemistry with Stone all year, and maybe you might have something.
Yeah, there you go. And I mean, and just continuing to look across the Pacific, Seattle, I don't think they're going to be as bad as they were last year. Certainly there's going to be some more opportunities given to potentially Shane Wright if he is able to make the team. Matty Beniers, I think you're hoping will take a step and make this team. And then, obviously adding Burakovsky coming off a cup win with the Avalanche. You're going to get a full year of Yanni Gourde, which was, when a guy, not only does he go to a new team, a brand new team, for him and the team itself, and he had to miss a little bit of time there in the beginning. That never helps. I think you're going to see a better team out of Seattle, which you just kind of look across the board and go, okay, everybody's getting a little bit better. Maybe not San Jose. They might be the one outlier where you're like, I think they probably still have another year of losing and maybe trying to acquire some high-end talent in the draft. Anaheim won't necessarily be world beaters, but they're going to probably be more interesting to watch, especially with Mason McTavish coming up and he's going to make the team.
They should be better with Klingberg, who's fighting for a new contract, and they signed Ryan Strome, so they now have a nice little 1-2 punch. And I mean, they got a good group of centers between Zegras, McTavish and Strome now. So I'm kind of with you. I think obviously, San Jose's the outlier here, but I think the rest of the teams in this division have gotten, better. And I think, again, we talk about how tight the top 5 in the Central is between, Colorado, Minnesota, St. Louis, Dallas, and Nashville, how good that group is. And, how close all those teams were outside of maybe Colorado kind of running away with it a little bit. But, I think these teams 1 through 6 in this Pacific Division, 1 through 7 maybe, could be all within 10, 15 points of each other come the year end.
Yeah, it could be tight. It could be real tight. And the Oilers, the Oilers are going to be better than they were last year. That's the other. You've got Jack Campbell. Assuming he can stay healthy, I think that Jack Campbell in general is better than Mike Smith. You consider they've got Evander Kane all year long now, and that in by itself is going to improve the team with just those 2 moves. You're also talking about another step potentially for Evan Bouchard. There's that Kyler Yamamoto and Jesse Puljujarvi. We're trying to see if they can break through and really become a regular in that top 6. That'll be an interesting story to watch. But in general, I think that Edmonton's probably going to be more consistent than they were last year. Remember, they were almost missed the playoffs for a minute there. And now I still think you come into this next year and you're more clear on regardless of the order, you're probably still thinking Calgary, Edmonton, Vegas as your top 3 in this division. But there's a lot more LA still likely is probably going to make the playoffs. What if Vegas falters again here? That. There's a lot of question marks. So, this is the time for the Calgary Flames. We might see another Calgary-Edmonton semifinal because these 2 teams seem like they're set up to take that step. So we'll see.
You hope so. You hope that Calgary isn't, last year wasn't a fluke and they're the Calgary they were, from 2 years ago. You hope that, the Battle of Alberta is back, right? And for real now. Because let's face it, those kind of interdivision rivalries that are so, I don't want to say toxic, but there's some snarl there, and I hope that they continue to only get better as these 2 teams continue to get better, and hopefully Calgary keeps up. And I'm with you. I think Calgary and Edmonton got to be there in that top 3. And there's a lot of scenarios I think for the rest of this division, these teams to get better or potentially even get worse. Right? Vegas could go out and acquire a better goaltender, right, to come in. So maybe that puts them over the top. Or maybe a guy like, Drew Doughty comes back and he's not as good as he was, or maybe Quick and Peterson can't find their way and, maybe they get worse. Who knows, right? Or maybe Vancouver goes out and trades JT Miller because they just can't figure out to get him to a contract extension. And so maybe they falter a little bit. There's all these scenarios where teams could separate themselves from the rest. But, again, I still think, like you talk about, Calgary and Edmonton are towards that top of the division. And hopefully, we get to see some good battles here.
Absolutely. Let's just kind of turn over to the Eastern Conference where 2 players looks like they're going to be out for the season. You've got Ryan Ellis, who's going to miss the start of the season for the Flyers. He played 4 games last year. So basically missed the entire year. And then Kent Hughes, GM of Montreal, and maybe a lot of the reason why they were willing to take on Sean Monahan, that Carey Price is unlikely to play this season. So that's disappointing news. We did talk about it, I think, last show, and I said I didn't think there was any way that he was going to come back and play. My guess is this means he's done, period. This is the slow burn to saying, yeah, he actually is going to retire. If you're not going to play all year, you're telling me you're going to come back in another year at 37 and you're going to come back and you're going to play at a high caliber. I just don't know if I see that occurring. So, or I guess not 37. He'd be 37 next year. So, what do you think about these two players? Well, Ellis missing and Price being out for the entire season.
Yeah, I think first to touch on Ryan Ellis, I think it's a little easier to just come out and say, hey, you know what? We're just going to let him get back to 100%. We're not going to rush him. There's no need, right? Philly went out and acquired Tony DeAngelo, so they got an offensive guy here who can move the puck like Ryan Ellis can, and help generate some offense from that back end. And they still got some good talent back there. I mean, Ivan Provorov, you hope that maybe he can regain form. And again, I'm not going any which way on Rasmus Ristolainen because he's just such an enigma. But with a guy like Ryan Ellis out too, I think there's some positives you can look at and say a guy like Cam York is going to get a little bit more playing time to start the season, so you can look at him and see what you really got out of this 21-year-old. But again, you don't have to rush him back. Maybe Philadelphia is still delusional and think they're going to be a playoff team, and I mean, whatever, that's on them. And I guess you can't really fault them for wanting to say you're a playoff team. And I would hate to have a GM or coach that said we're not, but reality is I don't see them making the playoffs. So realistically, I think it's a good thing that they're not rushing him back, because you hope maybe long term you still have him signed for another 4 seasons after this. You want him healthy, and you want him coming back when you do finally get back to playoff contention here, maybe in a couple of years, that you get 100% Ryan Ellis and he's good to go. So don't rush him. And then as far as Carey Price is concerned, I mean, look, I get it. In today's age, being a goaltender is a lot harder on the hips and the knees, and so I get it where the injuries pile up, especially for a guy like that who really in today's NHL we don't see a lot of guys that play 60, 70 games anymore, and he was pretty much it for Montreal for so many years. And the physicality plays a toll on your body, and so long story short, you just hate to see a guy have to end his career on injuries if that's the case. Right now, again, I've listened to some reports on Sirius XM from some guys on the inside that say, hey, he could potentially go through the surgery, recover, get back on track, and maybe come back next year. I honestly, who knows, right? I mean, that's just the bottom line. You never know with goaltenders, and it's even harder to guess when you're at that age and going through major surgeries like he has, to try to see if your body can recover after all those years of punishment and torture. So, you know what? Hey, he's been a great goaltender. There's a reason he has a Hart Trophy and Vezina. So, again, he's one of those guys that you hate to see end his career on an injury, because you'd like to see a guy like that go out on his own terms and have an opportunity to play, at his best at the end there. So, me personally, I'd like to see him come back, and even if it's in just a limited capacity where you see him play 20 or 30 games, but. I'm sure Montreal's hoping he just stays on the shelf so they can save that $10 million. But
right. Do you think that Carey Price is a Hall of Famer?
Oh, that's a very good question. Boy,
because I don't think that he is. I mean, he was the best player in the world for like a full calendar year, right? Like he won the Vezina, the Pearson, the Jennings, the Hart. He was on the All-Star team. He also won a gold medal for Canada, and I mean he was 4th in Vezina trophy voting the year before. The following year he had injuries, so he didn't make his way into any awards. But then the following year after that, he was 3rd in Vezina trophy. Like, he had a really nice run. I don't know that I see it. Like, he was certainly probably the most talented goaltender in his prime, right? Like in that, like maybe 2010 through 2017, 18, 19, somewhere in there. Probably the most talented goaltender, and he just wasn't on the best team. But injuries and a bevy of other reasons that he just never really got there in my mind. It's one thing for a lot of people to say, yeah, this guy was freaking good. But it's another thing to actually go out and be good and do the things that are necessary to win. I mean, he had some years where his save percentage was otherworldly. I mean, 933, 934, 923. fantastic years. It just, I don't know that he gets there because of the team that he was on. Like, sadly, because the team that he was on didn't make many long runs. I mean, obviously they recently made a Stanley Cup run. He did make the playoffs 10 years out of his possible 15. But really, he went on, 3 times he made it out of the first round? 4.
Yeah.
Sorry, 4 times he made it out of the first round. Oh, not necessarily his fault. It's not as if he was... he had a couple playoffs where he wasn't the best, but those were years where like Montreal got swept or something. Like, so you're playing much better teams. There were some years where they were like an 8 seed kind of vibe. But yeah, is he a Hall of Fame goalie? That's going to be a tough question. I mean, obviously it's not going to get a lot of answers until he really retires, right?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, personally, I would say no. I mean, look at the year he won the Hart Trophy, right? The best player in the world, according, to the NHL there. Devin Dubnyk finished 4th in Hart Trophy voting with, 4 points of a save percentage less and, 0.01 goals or, 0.1 goals against average, more than, Carey Price and a few less wins. But really, that was the year Jamie Benn took the Art Ross with 87 points last game of the season there. So scoring was just down in general in the league. And so it's a lot easier to look at a goaltender who's having a phenomenal year. And again, no discredit to Carey Price and what he did that year, because it was a phenomenal year for him. But, was he the best player in the world at that time? To me, no. I think it just was the fact that scoring was down across the league, and it was easier to look at a guy who's having a phenomenal year. Now, any other year in the NHL, he might not have won the Hart Trophy with those kind of numbers. He would have been up there, maybe top 3 or 4 in, voting, but ultimately probably, like for instance, last year, there's no way he would have, won out or beat out Austin Matthews, I think, last year with the way scoring was if he had those numbers. So,
sure. Okay. Yep. That's, but I do, if he had, 44 wins, 16 losses, and under a 2 goals against, 9.33 save percent. He has 16.2 point share that year. That's unbelievable.
I get it. And
he would definitely be in the top 3.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And there's, again, no discrediting what he did that year. That was a phenomenal year. And
but it's a year. It's a year. Like, it's right. A short time period. He was very good. I just don't think that being very good or even being one of the best for a while, like, he just doesn't necessarily have the accolades to justify it. And he's always been very well liked, but I feel like goalies from his era. Marc-Andre Fleury's going. He's a Marc-Andre Fleury's a Hall of Fame goalie, no doubt about it. He's going to be in the Hall of Fame.
Well, he's got the Vezina, he's got the Stanley Cups, right? He's got everything that you need.
And you're definitely I know that it's not necessarily fair to drop these guys against each other, although they did play each other in the Stanley Cup Finals. But Vasilevsky, in my mind, is likely to be a Hall of Famer, assuming his career continues down a similar trajectory that it is right now. So, you're only going to have so many goalies get in, right? Like, you're not going to have 15 goalies get in.
Yeah, so I don't mean to interrupt, but the one big guy in his era when Carey Price was in his prime that I like to compare him to when you talk about the Hart or the Hall of Fame is Henrik Lundqvist, right? You look at him. Henrik Lundqvist, for 10 years in a row, finished in the top 6 of Vezina voting, right? So clearly one of the best goalies in that generation, right? And that's the argument, right? Was Carey Price the goaltender of his generation? That was the big thing I kept hearing on Twitter all this past week. In 11-12, Carey Price Lundqvist had a .930 save percentage, a 1.97 goals against, and 40 wins or 39 wins to 18 losses, right? So pretty comparable stats. Finished 3rd in Hart Trophy voting, right? Had he won the Hart, then maybe you look at Carey Price's season and you say, it wasn't as good or wasn't as great, and you start comparing. But when you look at a guy like Lundqvist, who literally has almost 100 more wins And I watched, again, similar to Price, one season, but it seemed like almost year in and year out, Henrik Lundqvist was carrying his team on his shoulders in the playoffs and dragging them through the next round. So when I look at a guy like that, I look at, for example, a guy I grew up watching all the time, Chris Osgood, who has 401 wins. Literally is like the only guy with 400 plus wins to not get in the Hall of Fame yet. Lundqvist might change that or might be the next guy, but still, Carey Price is sitting only 21st all time in wins, which is really nice. But Jonathan Quick is right behind him and going to surpass him. Is Jonathan Quick, a Hall of Fame goaltender? He has the Stanley Cups. He's got a Vezina.
Yep. So
that's going to be a real hard argument for people to make when you look at Carey Price, because I know a lot of people, especially in recent years, have just said, "Oh, Jonathan Quick was a fluke," or he was, a product of that Suter coaching system. But he's got the hardware to back it up, where Carey Price doesn't have as much.
Yeah, it's very true. And you've got other players who are also very good. The Hart Trophy is a hard one to argue with.
Sure.
But yeah, it's you also got to think, like, there's Roberto Luongo. Did he get in this last one? Why did I feel like?
Yes,
no.
he did. Yeah, he's a Hall of Famer. Yep.
Yeah. So, but
he's fourth all time in wins.
He is fourth all time. Yes, but it's not as if he never even won a Vezina.
Nope.
So by that comparison, in some respects, you go, well, Price has his Vezina and a Hart, and was up for the Vezina quite a few times. And not that Luongo wasn't, but perhaps you look at Luongo and say, how do you let Luongo in and not heavily consider Carey Price, right?
Sure.
But okay. Well, I think we've beaten the Carey Price drum enough here for a guy who's not even going to see the ice this year. Is there any other thing you want to talk about here before we sign off?
Boy, really quick, if you want to run through it and just kind of rapid fire, maybe a couple of the key free agents left and maybe where you think they might end up.
Yeah, okay, let's do that. And before we do, I forgot to mention that I know I mentioned Mason McTavish. He won the tournament's most valuable player for World Juniors. 8 goals, 17 points in just 7 games. That is the third Ducks prospect in history to win the MVP of the tournament. Trevor Zegras also won it for the U.S., and John Gibson in 2013 won it for the U.S. So they've got the two back-to-back MVPs of the World Junior Tournament headed into this next year. So obviously,
first time
exciting.
Ever a team's had a back-to-back winner of that award. And had the save of the tournament, too. Let's just not forget about that.
Yes. So, big things coming for some younger guys. Obviously, Bedard looked fantastic, too, as a 17-year-old, put up 8 points there. And so it's going to be fun to watch him all year. And as he likely goes and is the first overall pick, we'll watch lots of teams try to lose for that. But I just thought I'd mention Mason McTavish for that trophy. And, we'll see another World Junior Tournament in 4 months. So that'll be fun.
Love it.
Okay, so we're talking a few players left over. Yeah, let's talk Phil Kessel. I have seen some thoughts about him ending up somehow in Edmonton. Any chance you think that happened? Do we see Phil Kessel going to Edmonton?
Boy, that's going to take some cap maneuvering. But, honestly, I think that there's a chance he could go to one of those cap-strapped teams on a 1 year, $1 million with a lot of performance bonus stuff that they can roll into next year.
Yeah.
That is possible. I think really right now his focus is going to be on playing in a winner or with a winner. So, in my opinion, though, I think I would like to see Phil Kessel end up with the Carolina Hurricanes. With Pacioretty going to be out for some time, I think that's going to help clear enough cap space for them to bring him in and give you another top 6 option there that they can, again, if, Kotkaniemi is not really producing where they think he should, and, maybe give you an option if, who knows, if Seth Jarvis just was a fluke last year, again, you have options.
Yeah, that's. I mean, wherever he goes, he's going to be a welcome addition. It is funny though that he's gone from this guy who can score 40 goals year in and year out to now he's more the playmaker.
Right.
And he always was a really good playmaker. He just maybe the guys around him were feeding him the puck.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he had Malkin passing him the puck, so who's the better playmaker?
True.
I mean, of course, yeah.
True. I know that's more of a UFA conversation. I'm surprised that Jason Robertson is still out there, unsigned by the Dallas Stars. That's going to be a tricky one for the Stars to get under there. And I mean, he's quite possibly their most important player right now, and they do have $16 million in caps. How much? $10 million in cap space right now. So it's not as if this should be too difficult to make happen. I'm wondering what's going on there. Why is he not signed along with Jake Ottinger?
That's where I think the hiccup is, right? Is because you have to get these two guys under $10 million, and yeah, there might be a little bit of wiggle room if you're sending a guy down or two, right? Like you could waive a guy like Tannen Kiro or Frederick Olofsson, but again, you've got a couple guys that you got to get signed that are so important to this team, right? I think if there's any two guys that are more important to a team, this defines it, right? Jake Ottinger could be a guy we look at because we don't see very many 60, 70 game played goaltenders anymore, and I think Ottinger's got a real argument and a lot of leverage to say, hey, I'm your only option here. Are you going to count on Scott Wedgwood for the rest of the year? No.
Right.
I mean, if it was me, I wouldn't be surprised if maybe a team. I mean, I'm surprised Vegas hasn't tried to make an offer sheet to Ottinger yet because they always go after the shiny toy. But these two guys obviously, I think Dallas is trying to bring them in at the right price to get them both under that $10 million, and it's just not really happening. So it's going to be interesting for sure. I don't know how Dallas really gets it done, in my opinion. I think it's going to be very, very tight. They're going to have to maneuver, and who knows, maybe you end up losing a guy like Joe Pavelski and have to trade him.
No, there's no way.
Even though he's got a no move clause. But
no way they're trading him. No way.
Oh, I agree, but
no way. I think your most likely is, can you figure out a way to get Jason Robertson to take a bridge deal here? That's
maybe you get him on a 1-year contract, right? And you hope that next year when Rupe Hintz, his deal needs he's going to need a new deal next year. But I don't really.
I mean, the Ben and particularly the Ben contract, but also Seguin, that's certainly causing a giant issue. I mean, Sagan's still productive. I think there's still a world where he's a 60-point player if he's fully healthy. I mean, last year he had 49 points, Jamie Benn is he's just not there. I mean, he's just not producing, and he hasn't been producing. And those two contracts are really weighing down what they can do with the rest of this team. A nice move to bring in Mason Marchment in the offseason, but now suddenly you're looking at that and going, oh, did you bring in Mason Marchment at the expense of Jason Robertson or Jake Ottinger? I think it's most likely that you're able to say to Jake Ottinger, look, like, sign the 2-year bridge deal. We'll give you $3 million, like 2 times 3 or something like that. Maybe he's 23 years old. I don't know that they're trying to go 5 times 5 for him yet after he has 1 year of pretty good production. I think you maybe want to see if he can do it over the long haul again. Although
I agree.
So that maybe is their only leverage with him, and I don't think anyone's going to offer sheet a goalie. So I think that he probably has less leverage than, say, a Jason Robertson, who I don't know that there's a team out there that could drop an offer sheet on him for big enough where Dallas wouldn't accept. Like, I think if somebody came out and said, yeah, we'll give you 7 times 8, I think Dallas would match.
Oh, absolutely. No, I agree. I don't think any team's going to be – I would try that, right? Because, again, Dallas would match anything. Now, Ottinger, again, I think teams, why we haven't seen an offer sheet for a guy like that is because teams are going to be cautious, right? If they're going to sign him at a dollar amount that Dallas would match, it would have to be very, very high and would cost them multiple picks. And for a guy who's only had 1 really full season in the NHL, right, you don't take that kind of risk for those amount of picks, really.
Yeah, no.
So, yeah, of course, that's why we're not seeing that. But, I still think if both these guys have a lot of leverage, and I think it's probably ultimately, if you want to get both of them done, you got to sign them to 1 or 2 year deals and, wait till the cap shoots up in a couple of years.
All right, I'm going to give you some names, rapid fire. Tell me what team they end up on. Paul Stastny.
Oh, he's going back to Colorado. They need a second line center.
I like it. Okay. I was thinking the other option for Paul Stastny to me would be Toronto.
Oh, I like that too, though. That's nice.
But like you're thinking, probably Stastny signing some kind of 1 year, $1 million, 1.5. That likely is probably what he's going to get at this point. So if he wants to go to a winner, he could certainly get more if he goes somewhere else. But yeah, I like the Colorado thought too. That would be interesting. I know that they liked him when he left before. Evan Rodriguez.
Ooh, I could see him going to the New York Islanders. They need something for this fan base, and he would be a pretty good middle six guy for them. Again, I'm not really sure what their plans are. No one ever does, but that could be a decent fit.
Yeah, especially after losing out on Nazem Kadri. Rodriguez can slot in at center position if needed. I think there was certainly an offer on the table for Kadri. So, Rodriguez would be I won't say he's much of a consolation prize, but he's not a bad player to come in and play in your top 9 somewhere. And he's proven that he can play up and down the lineup. Last one, PK Subban.
Ooh, PK. Boy, that's a tough one. I think a team like the New York Rangers would probably be best for him. If you look at their bottom pairing right now, I think they've got Brandon Schneider and maybe Zachary Jones, maybe. Really, their top 4 between Fox, Trouba, Lindgren, and K'Andre Miller's rounded out, but their bottom pairing is, guys who don't have a lot of playing time, guys that don't have a lot of production. So PK Subban could come in, be a nice, steady veteran presence to a very young blue line. Trouba's their oldest player at 28 years old. Everybody else is 24 or younger. So to get a guy in there, a veteran presence who could be a steady rock back there, and then also slot in potentially on your number 2 power play unit if you want, chip in a little bit on offense, that'd be great.
Okay. You know what? One more. Let's do Sonny Milano.
Okay. Yeah.
I was surprised that Anaheim didn't try to just match his salary. He was an RFA. They could have matched, and they chose not to. Yeah.
He could really go anywhere. I'm actually kind of surprised, and it could be just a simple issue of really just dollar amounts, right? He just hasn't been able to find a contract he likes, and maybe he's just going to wait it out till teams get someone injured. But he could potentially slot in with a team like, the Nashville Predators, who could use a little bit more scoring in their bottom 6 and maybe be a good third line option for them.
Yeah, I was thinking the New Jersey Devils would be a good spot for Sonny Milano. Kind of offers a little bit of that sandpaper. And he would fit well there too. I know they don't have a ton of cap space right now, but that's Sonny Milano's not signing probably more than $1.5 million, maybe $1 million with some potential bonuses. So
sure,
I think at this point most teams could fit him in wherever need be. So, and you think that the Leafs are going to end up trading Rasmus Sandin? Do they sign him or does he sit?
Oh, that's a really good one because he's one of those guys, right? A year or two ago, we were talking about this guy potentially being like a 10, 15-year guy for the Leafs on the back end, right? But their left end is so clogged up right now between, Riley Muzzin and potentially TJ Brody. Yeah, Giordano.
Yeah.
You've got a lot of guys on the left side. So, really it's going to be, 2 or 3 years before he gets some quality playing time. So for me, I think if you're Toronto, really, you're just going to kind of sit on it for a while. And then I think what will end up happening is either he's going to sign just a small 1-year deal, come November or whatever.
Do this all over again.
Yeah, and do it all over again next year and next summer, or they're going to end up trading him to add a piece. Maybe if they come to find out that maybe their third line could use a little bit more something, and they try to make a play for, somebody else by dangling him out as a trade chip.
Yeah, and I think after what happened with Nylander and probably giving too much money quickly to Marner and to Matthews to a certain extent, like just doing those deals like oh, we're not even going to think about it. We're just going to sign him to a bunch. I think that maybe has set up Kyle Dubas for failure in the future. Like, and I think this one, he's just going to have to go balls in. Like, nope, I'm not messing around this time. I'm not going to give in.
Sure. And those guys had the production to back up, right? And to have some leverage where he doesn't really have that, right? He doesn't have the games played or anything like that where he can really leverage bigger contracts. So I think really it's a situation where he's just asking for more money than what he's really worth. And, unfortunately, he doesn't have any arbitration rights or anything like that. So.
Yep, he's going to have to just take what he's given, essentially, which I mean, it's not as if they offered him nothing. I mean, 1.4 for 2 years, I think, was the offer on the table. But and whatever, he wants a little bit more, but you're not getting $3 million or anything like that at this point, at least not from the Leafs. They can't afford to do it. So, all right, well, I think that's our show. You can find us on Twitter at OT Hockey Talk. We'll be back with another top 10 list, and we're going to start jumping into some deep dives into some teams, and we're rapidly approaching training camp. We've got less than a month to training camp, so it's basically here. We're going to start having some preseason games, and I don't know that I'm ready for it yet. Are you ready for it?
I've been ready for it since Colorado skated around that rink with the Stanley Cup. I want to get going.
Yeah, I'm ready to watch my team, or the teams I care about, and I want to see what the Red Wings have to do here, and we'll have to do some. We'll have to go to a Red Wings game this year. Maybe we can sneak a Leafs Wings game in, or I don't really care, a Wings anybody game, because when you try to go to a Wings Leafs game, you pay 5 times more for the ticket than you do for any other game.
Well, I will tell you, so 2 things, right? The Red Wings are playing the Leafs in preseason, so we could potentially go to that on the cheap.
There we go. Yep.
But I've also got tickets to the Red Wings home opener against the Canadiens.
Oh, look at you.
Yeah, my nephew, he's 5.5 years old. His peewee team is midgets or whatever it is. They're playing at the intermission between the game.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah, so if of course, like the team, had a fundraiser or whatever, and so we had to buy a couple tickets, and
nice.
So we all have, me and the wife are going to go with my sister and her fam, and what's really cool though is my brother-in-law. I'm trying to convince him to let me do it with my nephew instead, but they get to go to the Red Wings practice rink and see the locker room. So
there you go. That's pretty fun. I've never, well, other than like the tour thing, I haven't been to the Red Wings locker room at Little Caesars. I've been to the one at the Joe quite a few times.
Same.
So that'll be fun. Well, we'll talk more about that as it comes up. But find us on Twitter at OT Hockey Talk. Justin, have a great rest of your night. And to our listeners, thanks for listening to us for 5 years. Here's to another 5. We'll talk to you guys soon.